The physical passion agony of Christ, expressing the events leading up to the crucifixion, starts in the Garden of Gethsemane. Luke, the author of the New Testament books of Luke and Acts, by profession, was a physician. His writings manifest an intimate acquaintance with the technical language of the Greek medical schools of Asia Minor. For example, of the four Gospel writers, only Dr. Luke referred to Jesus' ordeal as agony. It is because of this agony over things to come that we learn during his prayer his sweat was, as it were, great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Luke 22:44. Only Luke referred to Jesus' sweat hydros, a much-used term in medical language, and only Luke referred to Jesus' sweat as consisting of great drops of blood, thrombohematose, a medical condition alluded to by both Aristotle and Theophrastus. Luke writes in the Gospel of Luke more detail about Christ's physical experience than do the other three Gospel writers. Of the many aspects of his initial suffering, the one which is of particular physiological interest is the bloody sweat. This phenomenon is called hematidrosis, or commonly referred to as bloody sweat. It is a real, medical ailment, and is well documented. It is interesting that many liberal scholars, who have no medical knowledge or research skills, say this event could not have happened. Every attempt imaginable has been used by modern scholars to explain away the phenomenon of bloody sweat, apparently under the mistaken impression that it simply does not occur. A great deal of effort could be saved by consulting the medical literature. Anyway, it does happen, although it is rare. When someone is suffering extreme levels of stress, for example, facing his or her own death, the minuscule capillaries that are in and around the sweat glands, some as small as the width of the blood cells, will rupture, causing an oozing of mixing blood with sweat. The result is sweating blood. Several historical references have been described, notably by Leonardo da Vinci, describing a soldier who sweated blood before battle, men unexpectedly given a death sentence. In a lecture, Dr. Frederick Zajib, former chief medical examiner of Rockland County, New York, stated, "The severe mental anxiety activated the sympathetic nervous system to invoke the stress fight or flight reaction to such a degree, causing hemorrhage of the vessels supplying the sweat glands into the ducts of the sweat glands, and extruding out onto the skin." While hematidrosis has been reported to occur from other rare medical entities, the presence of profound fear accounted for a significant number of reported cases, including 6 cases in men condemned to execution, a case occurring during the London Blitz, a case involving a fear of being raped, a fear of a storm while sailing, etc. The effects on the body is that of weakness and mild to moderate dehydration from the severe anxiety and both the blood and sweat loss. During the waning years of the 20th century, 76 cases of hematidrosis were studied and classified into categories according to causative factors. Acute fear and intense mental contemplation were found to be the most frequent inciting causes. This process alone could have produced marked weakness and possible shock. Another effect, sadly, is that the skin becomes extremely tender and fragile, so that any pressure or damage to the skin is more than ordinarily painful. Our Lord was suffering in agony, not trying to escape his call and plan, but asking if there were an alternative way, as well. He was going to face the ultimate terror. He would experience not only the pain, but also the rejection of the Father, and his divine anger for sin. From these factors, it is evident that even before Jesus endured the torture of the cross, he suffered far beyond what most of us will ever suffer. His penetrating awareness of the heinous nature of sin, its destructive and deadly effects, the sorrow and heartache that it inflicts, and the extreme measure necessary to deal with it, make the passion of Christ beyond comprehension. He knew the pain he, being fully man, was going to experience and endure. Being fully God, he could have escaped it. So resulted the traumatic struggle. He chose to go to the cross in our behalf, and be obedient to the plan for our redemption in the only way it could have been done.